and prospective homeowners, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, thank you so much for tuning in. It's such a pleasure to meet you. My name is Tanya, and I'm a Texas realtor and investor. And I live and breathe the world of real estate everything. Today's video is part of my series on navigating and decoding the home buying process. It does not have to be as daunting as many people make it out to be, but it does require some preparedness. For the majority of people, purchasing a new home is one of the largest and most significant financial decisions they'll ever make. So, as you embark on this exciting journey, it's crucial to approach the process with a clear understanding of your local real estate market and its potential complexities. In this episode, we will chat about some of my key insights as a realtor on navigating the home buying process, which can be used to help you make the most informed decisions possible. From understanding property types, to evaluating market trends, to preparing for certain contingencies of sorts. These key insights will empower you to navigate the real estate landscape with confidence. So let's get started. So you will see me look down at my notes so that I don't forget to cover something that I'm wanting to mention in this particular episode. The first would be understanding different types of properties. You've got, condos, townhomes, single family, detached single family residences, and all of those vary. They vary in where they're located at. They may be, more metro central area versus, being out in the suburbs. That may be a factor to consider. Also, they come at different price points. There's also a different set of, guidelines associated with those as well. And it'll be important in terms of, like, for instance, a condo. For many mortgages, the property has to be owned by a certain percentage of actual homeowners, not just renters dwelling in some of those units. Whereas for single family detached properties, that you would see out like in a traditional community, that's not necessarily a stipulation of your mortgage approval. So, different factors, understanding the different types of properties and what works best for your needs is going to be important. Next is researching and understanding your local real estate market and the trends that we're seeing. There's a lot in the national news right now about, the rates were an impact, pricing is an impact, but all these things vary from, not just state to state, not just city to city, but even within the same city, different parts of town can see those impacts differently. So, it's important to understand and not just take the national news as, a one-size-fits-all across the board, because that's definitely not the case. So don't get hung up on all the national stuff. Pay attention to what's happening locally, because you live locally. And that's where, insight from, your banking institution, your realtor of preference, that's where you should get your insight from. And even like maybe the local news where they focus on details where maybe the national, or not the national, but maybe the local real estate association has provided insight on certain topics. So that's the news you follow specific to your market. The next tip is understanding HOA fees and regulations. With each of the property types that we talked about earlier, it is important to know that the fee structure can vary, rules and regulations can vary. For instance, with most condos, your HOA dues, tend to be monthly. The legalities are different, and some of the rules, because of that, and common spaces and whatnot, will vary. If you compare that to maybe a townhome, you still have HOA dues, and those could be due monthly, quarterly, or annual. And with that type of a setup, you'll typically have your common spaces cared for by the association. So like the grounds, the landscape, any amenities, that sort of thing. In your traditional, neighborhoods and communities where you've got detached single family homes, whether it's a master plan community or not, your HOA, you tend to pay your dues. Most of those are going to be annually. Some communities do have a semi-annual or quarterly structure, but the majority is going to be on an annual basis. And those will cover, as I mentioned before, your amenities, your pools, your parks, your walking trails, the lighting in your community. And sometimes you may even have like on-site security, or even the monument entrance that's at the entrance of a particular community. So all those things, vary based on property type as well and location. My next piece of insight is going to be obtaining your mortgage pre-approval. And so it's very important that you understand your buying power before you go out and step foot in the first home and fall in love with something that you cannot afford to purchase. And I don't say that to be mean or unprofessional, but really is a waste of time, and it's a waste of emotional, energy. So a really good realtor is going to advise you or guide you to say, okay, do you understand your buying power? And your buying power is not just the price point to look at, but it's also taxes. What's the tax rate in that particular community? Is it located in an area where there's a flood zone and your insurance is going to be higher? So all these things are contributors to what the monthly obligation is going to be on the mortgage, and that definitely plays a factor. Because if you're looking at, for instance, a $300,000 house where the tax rate is, 2.4 compared to a $300,000 house where the tax rate is 3.6, there's a huge difference there in your buying power, because the monthly mortgage is going to be significantly more. And that can hinder your ability to successfully close on that particular transaction. So this is why we always encourage, before you get out and start looking, yes, the online calculators kind of give you a base start, but we definitely recommend you start with a licensed mortgage professional who does mortgages in your area. And if you don't have, your own personal contacts for that, typically your realtor can definitely guide you on that subject and offer you, a few choices, just to connect you and get you started. And then from there you pick, whoever you're most comfortable working with and who has the right program for you. Sometimes there are, state programs to assist with down payment, although those funds tend to be limited and at times at a little slightly higher interest rate. But depending on the scenario, your lender is going to be able to best guide you on what works best for your financial situation. The next step is open houses and scheduled private showings. Once you have been pre-approved for your mortgage, there's nothing wrong with attending open houses. However, I would say, if you've already hired your real estate agent, which I definitely encourage you to do, you want to be sure that that agent is aware that you're going to be looking at certain open houses. And there's some times where I even send my clients to look at a home in a certain area just to kind of get a feel for maybe a particular builder's product or what that community has to offer, or a certain floor plan, etc. And so, I may encourage, a client to attend a public open house. Beyond that, typically, we send our clients a list of homes they pick through, and they pick out the ones that they're most interested in. and that they feel will best suit their needs, and then we schedule private showing appointments that we, attend and, go along with them. From there, you can kind of narrow down a short list and come up with some possibles on, do you want to make an offer on that particular property or not. The next piece of advice would be to hire a licensed home inspector. Once you are under your purchase agreement with the seller, here in Texas, you will have what's called an option period, which will be for whatever period of time was negotiated as part of the offer process. And so you want to use this time to have the inspector come out and look for things that you may not normally know to look for, or have the bandwidth to professionally assess. So we always encourage you as the prospective buyer to take advantage of this. Plus, it's your right. You want to know as much about this property as possible before you have closed. So the home inspector is going to look at, the roof, the foundation, your HVAC system, plumbing, electrical, so their job, and they're licensed by the state of Texas as well to do this, is to look for those inadequacies and some inefficiencies and see what needs to be addressed, if anything. And so oftentimes this is a tool that your realtor can use to either negotiate repairs or an allowance or a new price. And sometimes it's the tool that allows for the contract to be terminated altogether. This is definitely your right. It's one that you'll want to exercise. It is a small investment, and it can range from $400 on up to $700, $800, $900, depending on the size or square footage of the home. So while it can be a small investment, it can save you from making a big mistake down the line. The next piece of advice is reviewing, property disclosures, seller's disclosures, and any reports that the sellers may have. Sometimes when you're attending some of the open house events, you may see this information, posted on site during that event. Other times it could be that the listing agent has posted the information attached to the listing. However, not all of that is going to be on the public side of certain MLS systems. So typically your realtor has to log in, download the information, and share that with you. And hopefully they've gone through that information as well, to be aware of certain things, and maybe they ask additional questions on. But just you just want to be as informed as you possibly can about the status of a home. And that is the seller's responsibility to share as much of those details as possible. But if they've shared it and you've not read it, then that's on you, okay? So, it's very important that you read those reports, because sometimes you may look at a home and be like, oh my God, it's so this or that. But then they're disclosing that there was a fire, or there was, a flood, or, there's some other issue that you may not be necessarily comfortable with, And what I would say that if there was a fire or if it did flood, what you want to know from there was, okay, was an insurance claim filed? Were the repairs done to code and to their standard? And so there should be a paper trail for that. So it doesn't mean that you don't buy the home. It just means you want as much detail about it as possible. And then again, that's where your lending partner, comes into the picture to make sure that everything is on point. And that is why your realtor and the lending team, these are your partners in the transaction. These are your team players. And it is definitely going to be a team effort to get you across the finish line. So, all that are involved professionally, we know what to expect. We know what questions to ask. We know what details to look for. And so that's why it's important that you be open to the insight that's provided by the licensed professionals. And it also protects your interest and your money. and potentially even your health. So our next piece of insight would be considering your long-term plans. So you want to take a strategic approach to buying a home. This is not something that you're going to do every day. And so when you make this commitment, it does tend to be for, an extended period of time. In short, the term short-term and long-term are relative based on, your needs. So long-term could be a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, whatever it is for you. But in that, when you compare where you currently are to what your goals are down the line, whether that means you're increasing the size of your household members, or you're going to have a change in career and income. Maybe you go back to school and now your hours are reduced. Whatever it is, you just want to look at the long-term plan and just kind of make sure that, for the most part, what you're looking to do is going to work for an extended period of time. Purchasing a home is an investment. And like most investments, it's not something that you jump into one day and then you bail out on, within a matter of weeks or months. So my next insight would be contingencies and delays. So preparing for the potential delays. It's always great when things go according to plan and everything's, picture perfect. But there are times where things happen, beyond your control. So are you prepared for, what happens if, you've got a deadline to be out of where you are and you're banking on closing by a certain date, but maybe the home is not ready, or something happens in the mortgage process that is delayed, like maybe we're waiting on the survey, the property survey, or the appraisal comes back and there are some issues. So that could all delay your ability to close on time. So you want to have a contingency in place for, okay, if this doesn't happen according to plan, do I have somewhere I can live so that I'm not homeless if it doesn't close exactly on this date as I'm anticipating? Delays do happen, and that's whether it's new construction or in a resale scenario. So you just want to be sure that, should something pop up, that you're prepared. Even if more money is needed, because sometimes that happens. Do I have the ability to get my hands on additional funds in a manner that is satisfactory to the lender? Don't just go out and, say, hey mom, can I have money? And then all of a sudden you put, cash in your account or something like that. Please don't do that. Be sure that you are getting guidance from your lender and your realtor on how best to navigate the process. Because one wrong move, you can actually, mess up the approval that you have in place, because now you're not able to substantiate, a decision you made or properly document it to meet the satisfaction of the lender. So, again, follow the guidance of your team players, your professionals who are on your side and are going to be an advocate for you. It's very important to listen and take heed and follow suit. And then my last piece of insight, which really is my first piece of insight, is to establish a great relationship with a licensed real estate agent or realtor. There's a difference. So typically, a real estate agent is one that is just licensed by the state. We then take on the title of realtor at the point that we have also joined the National Association of Realtors and are abiding by, our ethics and guidelines, and we've met, the educational requirements that they have asked us to achieve. So there's a difference, and so I always say, you want to go with a realtor because that's an elevated experience that you should be experiencing with them. from education to level of customer service, etc. So having this licensed professional on your side is, I think, paramount to any transaction, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, you're looking at your own personal home to live in or an investment, whether you have, this is your first time to purchase or it's your 15th time to purchase. I've had repeat customers who, know they're not new to this, but they won't go it alone because that's not what they do every day. So it's not to take anything from you, it's just you want that added advocacy and experience on your side. So, definitely look to us as a resource, and take advantage of that, because we're definitely here to help you and work with you and work for you. So those are my tips for right now, for this particular episode. Stay tuned. I'll try to answer the questions that come to me, be it different clients or potential prospects who have questions. And so a lot of this that I'm going to be presenting is based on those interactions. So I figure if one person has a question, many people may have a question. So there you have it. Those are my insights for today on how to navigate the home buying process, so that you make the most informed decisions that are best for you. Remember my biggest tip, not just because I am a realtor, but you want a realtor on your side for every real estate transaction. So until next time, happy house hunting.